Now, as parents and teachers, we might be tempted to think that if we have high expectations of our children, they will raise their aspirations and performance as a result, but it isn't necessarily the case. If kids are pushed too hard by external forces, and the external forces is the thing I emphasize there, then it can have a negative impact on their motivation and achievement. Our naturally curious young people who already have an inner drive to succeed and a fabulous onboard computer will actually want to succeed if they are being motivated or pushed in the right direction. Now, I have actually got this little slide. If you want one of these, you're welcome to have one of these afterwards, because the key lies into the two different types of motivations. Intrinsic and extrinsic. Intrinsic motivation is when you find something enjoyable and you develop a desire to master it. Extrinsic is you do it and I'll give you a bar of chocolate. You do it and I'll give you some money. And I'm often amazed at the number of parents who motivate their child by that. If you do it, we will go to. That's extrinsic motivation, and it won't work. Or it might work in the short run, but it won't work in the long run. Pushing is not always an enemy of intrinsic motivation. You can push children in a way that would support their sense of self-determination and autonomy and intrinsic motivation. I've got an example, actually. I was talking to one of my Latin teachers, and she said to me, had a year 7 Latin class, and they didn't do as well as she felt they could do in their test. So she said, you're going to do your test again. And they said, oh, no, I don't want to do the test again. That's awful, awful, awful. So she explained to them, this is why. I believe you can do better if you do this, this, and this. So they did do the test again. So she gave them the motivation. She gave them parameters in which they could actually operate so that they could improve their performance, and they did really well. And they said afterwards, you know, I'm glad that we did it again. So they're learning the benefits of how to do things in a way which is going to push them forward, but it's coming from within. So I would say pushing is fine as long as you make sure you involve your child in his or her learning, provide the rationale, provide choice and opportunities and goals, look towards mastery of the goal rather than a performance goal. So, for example, if you want somebody to do well in Spanish, focus on becoming fluent in Spanish. Let them hear people talking fluently. That's what we're aiming for, rather than getting an A in a test. Praise their actions rather than make it personal. Your answer show great perception rather than you are perceptive. And have high but realistic expectations of a learner. Expectations do have a powerful effect, so set the standard high enough to challenge and motivate, but not so high that it seems unattainable, and show them sympathy as well. I think as well, sometimes parents are pushed by the pressure, and next time you're in the playground and you're thinking, am I doing the right thing? Have I got the most expensive tutor? Am I doing enough extension work? Ask yourself, what's motivating me? What's my intrinsic motivation? Or am I being motivated by extrinsic factors? So that's something I'd just like to leave you with. Thank you.
How would you feel if you were being parented in the way that you are parenting? I'm quite sure that for most of you, the answer is going to be fantastic, because you wouldn't be here if you weren't incredibly caring and engaged parents, anxious to do the best you can for your children and find out the best and the widest reach of information from which you can make your choices. But on the days when you're feeling as if the pressure's all on you, and perhaps the risk is we transfer some of that pressure to our children inadvertently, maybe that's a helpful question. How would I feel if I were being parented in the way that I am parenting? Another question. What did you hear? What did you really hear the last time you listened to your child? And I think that's a really important question also for teachers. Sometimes we go into broadcast mode with our wisdom and we forget to listen and to really hear what's being said. Maybe sometimes what's not being said. Read the body language, look for the signals, get to know them, get to know our students well. I think time is the currency for the 21st century. We are all so short of time in relation to our ambitions and the pressures that we've put on ourselves to just sort of live in the modern world with all its challenges and its 24/7 stimulation. So the most precious thing that we can give our children is our time. So few more questions for you. What was the most wonderful thing about your child that you can think about recently? What is the most wonderful thing about your child? What has astonished you recently about your child? If you could live last week again, with the benefit of hindsight, what would you do differently as a parent? If anything. If it's nothing, keep going. But I think if we don't stop and reflect on these things, we just go forward in this great avalanche of reactive living and the wonderful learning that we can all find, the wisdom to guide our paths and make the decisions about this pushing and incentivizing and pulling. And those questions are difficult to answer if we haven't got the headspace ourselves to really drill deep and think, what question is it actually that we are asking ourselves, and look to ourselves first. I had the wonderful opportunity recently of having a short conversation with the former Archbishop of Canterbury, Lord Rowan Williams, who I'm sure a few of you may have heard speak, or either on television or perhaps in person. And I knew I only had a short time with him, so I thought, right, I might never meet him again. What am I going to ask him? So I asked him, if you were me and you had the power and the influence and the opportunity for the short years that I'm going to have my role, my job, and you had an amazing group of extraordinary young people and these wonderful families who have managed to arrange their finances and their time and their ambitions such that they can attend one of the best schools in the world, what would be the most important thing I should be focusing on? And he thought about this for a little while, and he said, I'm not going to answer your question, I'm going to ask you a question in return. He said, what is your organization's relationship with time? And I really believe that that is a wise, wise question for us all, because the pushing and the frenzy and the anxiety to some degree comes from our worries about, will we be enough? Will they be enough? Have we done enough? Was it enough? Will I look back and regret that I didn't get my priorities straight? I didn't give them enough boost, but boost for what? That's our question. And to Julia's points earlier, I think because we don't know what the jobs are going to be, what we can educate them for is agility of mind, flexibility of mind. Change isn't something to be feared and dreaded. Change is something to be wary of and be cautious about, but also to be embraced. It's like a surfer that learning to surf and trying to get up off on the surfboard and thinking, ooh, and falling off a few times, and then suddenly they catch the wave and they can stand up. So when those change come, those opportunities come, they're also incredible opportunities to pull together with their peer group, to collaborate in ways that are unprecedented because they're the digital natives. The children who you're raising and we're educating have never lived in the 20th century. They've never, ever not had the technology that we have now. And that can be terrifying and inducements of great fear. But my goodness, they also can do wonderful things with it, provided we remember the advice of Tim Cook, who is, as you will know, I'm sure, Steve Jobs' successor at Apple. And he was addressing the graduating class of MIT graduates this year, and I was very interested to know what his advice to them was. He said, you will have to decide whether you're going to put your humanity at the center of your technology or your technology at the center of your humanity. Because human beings and technology are now in an intertwined, in an interconnected, we're on a journey. But the choices we make in our households, in our lives, in our cars, in our restaurants, in our workplaces, and in our social time, in our leisure time, the choices we make, we will subliminally or consciously be making that decision every day. Have we let the technology shape our humanity and the way we're behaving? Or are we seeking to remember what is best about being a human being, the compassion, the care, the service, the ability to live abundantly and live with a full and meaningful life by doing things with other people, by having exciting breakthroughs, learning all about the brain and innovation, how we're going to work. And then the technology is the servant of our humanity. And I hope those are just a few helpful thoughts for you. They're certainly thoughts that we think about in our schools a lot when we are shaping the curriculum. And we're shaping not only what we're teaching the children, what they need to learn by way of skills, but the values we want them to be exposed to, in the hope that they will embrace those values for the long lives that they will lead. So thank you for your company this morning. We would love to take any questions that you might have, and thank you again for coming along.